It takes a second.
Yeah.
I have to mute the sound, otherwise it's gonna echo on YouTube. Okay. Now then I put it on recording.
Hi, welcome back to Daughter Land. This is my
I'm the
mom.
mother.
Yep, and I'm the daughter. And here we talk about everything related to being a human and how best to get through life happily. So my mom's name is Ying. She's the founder of Eastover Estate and Eco Village, a retreat center in Western Massachusetts. And my name is Hannah, and I'm an artist, yoga teacher, and astrologer. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Yash, and he runs the YouTube account Spiritual Renaissance. So we're very excited to talk to him. And we wanted to start by asking you, Yash, how you came to a place of understanding non-duality.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a linear intellectual process. And that's what I keep trying to share in my videos. The real answer, I don't know. I don't know. This is the most honest answer. Because if I knew, then I could duplicate that, and then I could, give it to you, give it to somebody and say, look, here's the instructions. What you got to do. You got to eat clean. You got to preserve your sexual energy. You got to meditate an hour in the morning and the evening. You got to do these asanas and mudras and bandhas and then kriyas and then pranayama. And then that'll balance your life force. Then your kundalini comes, all that, all that. I tried all that. I used a scientific mind to try to figure out how can I get the self-realization. And so I would have to say, without any question, Grace is doing all this. Grace has put herself to sleep inside a form, and then it wakes itself up. And how that goes, how that happens, it's so individual. We all have our story, but it's not about the story. It looks like, oh yeah, it's because I went to India and I found a teacher and then he gave me this insight. But no, Grace took that form. It's like it's running everything. It's just for the set dressing, for the appearance, it looks like, oh yeah, it's because of this and this and this. But really the underlying essence, man, I don't know how this stuff works.
Right.
Yeah.
So if, let's say somebody who's unrealized, and they asked you what is spiritual realization? Like, what is this thing that you're talking about? What is non-duality? What have you come to? How would you describe it?
Yeah, and I would say we're all unrealized on some level because you'd never get to a flag post realization. Otherwise, there would just dematerialize. There'd be total fusion, and there would be no separate self to even recognize that there's some realization. So if we say, how can somebody who appears to have some higher level of self-realization, which is usually other people saying that, the being who actually is thought to have the high realization, I don't think if they're authentic that they feel they have anything. Not as a nice, humble thing to do. You realize this is just all so natural, So the question I think you asked was, oh, what was you, how, what, ask me again.
Well,
what can they
how would
do?
you define this
Fine.
thing?
Right. Okay. So simple. I like simple as best as I can, although this stuff is beyond complex because it's all paradoxical. I know some comments on my video, they say, Yash, you're confusing me because you say like the ego we have to transcend, but now you're saying the ego is like fuel for our awakening. So it's all very, it's hard to talk about. But the definition self-realization, there's some kind of sense. You have this separate individual self that the non-dualists want to say don't exist. Okay, that's cool. But you have that appearance. And then somehow it's tasting, you can say, the source from where it came from. Sometimes the dimmer light switch gets turned up more on that to where you feel like, whoa, the fusion is really pretty good right now. Other times there maybe appears to be a gap more. But I would say self-realization is somehow this appearance of a self is tasting its true self. And to what degree, we can always do that more. This is the thing.
Dissolves, right? It's like merging into the one. Like you felt like, you really don't have a handle of the self when the instance happens. So it's kind of like an energetic experience. And it just, the self just dissolves, you don't really have a real handle of the self in this instance, and you just feel everything is the whole. And it's like as if everything is talking to you, but there's no sound. But you kind of understand the sound. Some people, like, they receive the messages. So it happened to me also once too, on a full moon, like full moon, day, and woke up in the morning, but then just drift into sleeping again. And I like your video session, you talk about dream. So kind of for me, like suddenly the energy took over, like the whole body is shaking. But actually, I wasn't awake, but only knew it's like, vibrating, like a crazy. And then there's a sound emerging and coming and tell you things, messages. In my instance, it gives me messages of like how to receive the energy from the universe, and then how you one hand receive, another hand you put it on the other person's body, and how you heal people. So that was transmitting the message to me in a very energetic way. There were like images and sound, but was kind of like a silent movie. Yeah. So everything is vibrational. So it was kind of like an energetic experience.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then also I had an instance also just walking in the forest, and then suddenly everything becomes live. So you totally lost, like you don't know how to respond, but you are just be part of it. Like you are just totally part of it. Everything is like as if talking to you, like the orange lizard on the ground is like as if it's talking to you. The grass and everything is talking to you. The sun, the trees. So it's like in a dream. So that's how I experienced many of these kind of vacations. And then of course is that, you talk a lot about the self-realization, which really is that, it's the mind, there's this ego, and every time when you encounter of difficulties or being stuck or in pain, the ego always jumps in, and it's got every kinds of reasons to tell you, what the ego wants you to do. So my guess is that, I think it's through life and work and everything. So the ego kind of like, being put on the side, more further and further, kind of like limiting its aliveness, controlling of our behavior and our life. So I think that, but I also met people who were so ill, like terminal lung cancer. And then, through a process of like letting go, but at the end, actually is that the energy takes over. And then from there, actually is even the person not, herself knowing about it. And then actually, her lung cancer actually cured from that. Not in that long time. It took like a 2-year time, So, but what happening is that, is that then during the life, during these 2 years, like they really actually do not have very much to say about their state. Like the energy just comes on, like for example, there were time period, like she had no strength in her legs at all, Like, let's say she'll bend down, she will not be able to stand up, or is that her leg and her hand will tremble like crazy, when the moments rise up, you never know what is going to rise up, So these are the kind of like experiences that I had, with others and myself. I think I look at your video, I see that, that you really describe very well when you are on the video and explaining of that, that how that, that mental and also spiritual path in many ways, it helps you actually letting go of this self, realizing the illusory part of, this material world. And then at the same time, preparing yourself. You never know, right? What's going to happen next. It's like we do not really have a free will. But at the same time, it's like we are in this illusion as if that everything we do, like we are the one that kind of like, making the decision to move your hand and move your leg, but actually it's all, on the autopilot.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, the non-dual, sometimes they want to dismiss that. And they have some imaginary idea that they're not even going to recognize anything anymore. It's like, no, that movie we're in, that we feel like we're doing something, not doing something, that continues. It's just taken less serious. That's all. But it's we shouldn't shame that. Like, it's great. It gives us the experience of feeling like we exist and we're doing something. And that can be super strong sometimes. If somebody puts a gun on you, you're going to feel this identity more strong than if you're sitting in meditation, because it's just how it works.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, because a lot of, well, I think that there's, some sort of reason that we're here having a human experience, right? Like, we shouldn't entirely bypass the human experience just to sort of dissolve ourselves and, have absolutely no ego, because actually the ego is serving us. So can you talk a little bit about if you had any experience like in relating to your psyche or understanding psychology behind your ego, like if you've done any sort of shadow work, like that kind of work, as well as, because non-duality is quite distinct from that in a way.
Yeah, and dismissive also. That's one of the things. Yeah. So, like, are you asking like what shadow work have I done that I saw once some shadows have become more dissolved, and I recognize, oh, this realization seemed to come more easy now, because I did a lot of fasting when I was in Thailand, because it's perfect climate. I was fruitarian, and got deep into fasting, and I feel like that brought up more than any a therapist, for example, that I used to go, I don't know, when I was 20, maybe I went to a therapist, and I would start toying with them. This is what I do when I get bored. I start playing, I go to Clown Land, mess around. It was like it helped me survive in this world, because I would just grow endlessly tired of the same minds. And so the therapists, they didn't go deep enough. Like, I somehow knew spirituality is where it's at. Otherwise, there's just more problems behind these problems. Oh, my mom told me I wasn't good, and so now when I'm around somebody and if they say something, I get triggered more easy because it reminds, like, all that. Okay, if that realization of that connection's there, that's fine, but it doesn't help me transcend it, knowing, oh, this came from there. And it still comes up, especially if you're in an intimate relationship, especially the people you love. Then, oh yeah, God forbid if they say something wrong, So all that stuff, I feel like it came up and just washed out when I was doing excessive. I don't recommend. I do things full on, you see, and that's not always good. I just did so much fasting. I really hurt my nervous system. Then I got deep into dry fasting. It's even more strong. So it's like It's like you're squeezing your body and psyche like a sponge. And so all these hidden things, like they have to come up. They can't help it. I didn't know that was going to happen like that, but this is how I'm articulating it now, looking back at that. And then you start to, I don't know, get angry for no reason, or just sad maybe for a few days. And it's like these stale energies, these contractions, they're just kind of naturally being purged on their own. And then when I got deep into plant medicine, when I went to South America, ayahuasca and San Pedro cactus, I always use that as a medicine. I can't understand the people that go party with it. I'm like, that's the last thing I'd want to do. Like, I would be super uncomfortable. But we did it in ceremonial setting, and man, that really allows some subtle introspection and looking at things normally that you don't have access to because the mind's making so much noise. So that's been my process of doing the so-called shadow work. I didn't have to go find it. I guess that's the takeaway from this. I need to go find these shadows. How am I going to find it? I somehow, grace lets that, it creates a conducive environment, either the fasting or plant medicine or whatever. And then in that environment, these things start to come up and be purged naturally, because it's destiny that this human self, individual self, gets purged so that God can shine through more easy. Like, it's all already written in the script, you know. Somehow it goes back to what we're saying. Like, we just got to show up, and even that's not it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think even if you don't have, let's say, as extreme experiences as the, extreme fasting or things like that, I feel like life still presents us constantly with opportunities where our shadow is coming up and is, willing to be sort of dealt with at that time.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's just a form that mine took. But there's a million forms that God can use, intimate relationship, or death of a loved one, or just going on a retreat and being in a silent retreat environment. Oh yeah, stuff will come up there too. Yeah. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit? I mean, this is interesting to me because I think about this a lot. You said that non-duals can be very dismissive of shadow work. They can be very dismissive of this whole ego thing, I feel like. And I think that sometimes we're missing that entire aspect in thinking about spirituality, because it's a lot more pretty to think about just sort of bypassing everything and just living like that, you know what I mean, rather than actually dealing with certain things. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's automatic. That's what the mind does. We're so used to using our mind for everything, lifetimes, this habitual nature of using the mind, that then when we find a spiritual practice or find anything that's designed to transcend the mind, we can't help but for a while use the mind to try to understand the spiritual practice or understand the spiritual principles. And the non-duality, Advaita self-inquiry, this is this is the most this is the major trap for intellectual minds, because it's so easy. You can seemingly make sense of everything and say, look, there's nothing really exists, and there's nobody here to even see that nothing exists. And you can just, especially if you have innately some intellectual aptitude with wordplay and intellect. Oh, these people, they suffer the most, actually, because I've been around a couple of geniuses in my life, and they're like walking encyclopedias. It's like amazing, but man, their intuition, they have no idea even what it is. It's so dormant in the sleep. Mine has overridden that to such a degree they don't even know. In fact, the mind says, yeah, this is intuition speaking, but it's totally the mind. So that's what happens in non-duality a lot. They confuse realization with the mind having an intellectual understanding and grasp. But that's why I talk about the energy and vibration a lot. You can't fake vibration. It's impossible. You can't. If one's sensitive, you can listen to somebody and you feel, are their words backed with the vibration of realization? There's no faking that, So that's how that's how you can tell. You know? But it's automatic for a while. Like we can't help it. We have to use our mind to do that for a while. But then through grace, hopefully quicker than later, we start to catch ourselves out. We start saying things. It's like, wait a minute, something you feel inside. I wasn't really one with my words, you know, and you start listening to that. Or you're around people who they're not afraid to tell you, like, look, man, yeah, it sounds good, but like, just shut up. And then if we're humble enough, we can use that as introspection, you know. Otherwise, we can just live as a, you know, a hero in our own mind, or whatever that's called, a legend in our own mind, and just wow, nobody gets me because I'm, you know, oh well, yeah, that's a, yeah.
But I want to just to say a few words. I think actually is that some of the young people that enter into this state of no distinction, you know, it's like as if, you know, like their left brain is kind of shut down, you know, in a state like that. I do believe is that they enter that state, and then there's a period of time, like it's like as if, you know, they exhausted all of the yang energy. It's like the yang energy is totally exhausted, so that they are in a state that energetically hijacked by the mighty, you know, universal energy, that they cannot actually, let's say, be able to distinguish. They do enter that state. And I think that some of them, you know, like as they gain back some of their, you know, strengths, or then, you know, they able to come back to, you know, the natural, you know, yin and yang, like, because, you know, we are, you know, humans, you know, right? You know, and we naturally, you know, so it's like as if is that when they are in that state, they do not able to actually distinguish. So they are right in a wave, as if in a potentiality of the energy. So the energy itself hasn't really, you know, like waving it out yet, you know, it's like potentially. So there's a potential energy. And as far as, you know, go the left path or the right path, you know, usually like our brain choose which path to go, right? But for them, when they are in that state, they do not have the ability to kind of like distinguish, you know, so they ride in that wave of the natural energy. So it appears as if there's nothing going on. You know, I think it's a state, it's a stage that it's in. And I think that at some point, they're going to come out of that. And then they want to, you know, realizing this is what's going on, you know. And I think Hannah went through this, right?
I don't know.
I think you did, because I remember of during the pandemic when you were locked down in the house, and you were like, how to say is that, of course, you know, practice yoga every day, and you were like really in this flow state. Yeah. And then the appearance to others, like appearance to us was like, you know, like we couldn't like really discuss with you of anything else, you know, and we kind of like just, you know, went along with you, and then, you know, and you kind of like just flow with that, and in a state of just being, you know. I think you went through a period like that.
Another dynamic. Watch it. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, Yash, what were you going to say?
That's true. When you're saying, yeah, that's a higher version. That's better. What Ying was saying, like that's better than somebody who's just a unconscious parrot. Yeah, I had a friend like that in Guatemala. He had very deep realization, and then yeah, he couldn't. Yeah, it was like what you said. And yeah, that's a temporary thing that they come out of it. So yeah, that's a better.
Yeah, it's a temporary state, you know. Yeah. And then of course is that, you know, sometimes what happen, I notice young people around me, what happen is that that state really feels good, you know? Because, for example, I have a young man, staying at Eastover. That state is really good. So then end up with he doesn't want to do anything. So even other staff asking him, "Oh, can you help me, hold this thing up?" And he will say no, because what he is doing is that he was like either on the weed or drinking or whatever to keep himself in that state, because there's that kind of tendency does not want to leave. It's like a la la land, and I definitely encounter that too. But the interesting thing is the following, and I can understand why there's so many of them come on YouTube and talk about this, is that when there's others engaging them, let's say in conversation, they love to talk about it because to share with others of that wonderful, like non-dual state is really, really very happy. It's and they love to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's just another opportunity to practice this introspection on a level that most won't even ever touch. As one sharing, I feel like this becomes automatic at a certain point. There's always some sensing like, am I saying that to try to get a little hit from the other person? Like, oh, look at that, and I just love introspection. It catches ego out on the most subtle levels that it just accelerates everything. The more I can catch subtle motives of why I say something or how I might want others to view me, the more that gets exposed, it's like more serenity. That's why one gets addicted to it. It's like, damn, how can I catch myself out more? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that experience of yours, though, is quite unique. I think a lot of people are not into introspection, even people who are like, let's say living in non-dual land. I feel like that sounds like something that you specifically are quite interested in, because there are a lot of people who will just, say their stuff and then like maybe later on realize, look back and realize what was happening in moments like that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a spot check introspection where you can do it anytime. There's at the end of the day or something, or there's no rules. It's I just feel like that has been such a good gift because it just unravels ego knots that I don't know are there. We can learn so much from our motives or why we do, if I'm talking to a girl, the guy-girl dynamic, like, yeah, because my other channel, have you saw Beyond the Alchemy where I talk to the guys? No? Oh,
No.
okay. Yeah, it's a semen retention channel about preserving the sexual energy. And they're mostly younger, 20s and 30s, and they're just obsessed with girls, and they can't help it, and they want her to look at him, and so the motives get all mixed up, like, well, why am I talking to her though? Like, what's really behind that? I'm pretending like I'm helping her, yeah, but what do you really want to do? So yeah.
I saw a little bit of yours. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah.
Well, I think
for me is that, I kind of like, when certain key moments when it hit me, so I see myself, the energy, it just really drop to the bottom, and then when it hit that bottom, and then suddenly, the light comes up, it's like as if you are meeting death, and then suddenly the light come up and then it really strikes you and helps you to see why is that, just the energy just keeps dropping. Why is that, and that these are the moments it really is like, it's like as if, like up to a step, And then, you felt like, oh, okay, now I know, I'm not going to go back to that again,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very individual, all these things. It depends on one's character and temperament and archetype as to, and culture, how we go through this purification process. Is one more intellectual by nature? Is one more devotional by nature? So many things. So yeah, there's no right way. That's why I always encourage people. You discover for yourself, try all these different things, see what's organic, and that's what you do.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up how I think the being super reflective in the moment seems very individual to you, because it seems like a really good way that you're using your brain as a tool. And like, you seem more like an intellectual person that seems driven to do that, right? But there are other people who are living in non-dual land, and they're more inclined to, not think about anything, or like, their brain is not very involved, right?
That's why I wanted to throw that disclaimer in, because yeah, I noticed. Yeah, you reminded me of that 10 minutes ago. Like like okay, that's cool that you do it, but like yeah, no, it's not necessary. Yeah, one cannot think about it at all, and somehow the alchemy happens anyway. So that's what's so nice about life. There's so many different ways, but one just should discover one's own way. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating. Like I'm sure all three of us are extremely different in how we use all of our faculties in living. And it's fascinating to see people go through transformations. I mean, I think in a lot of spirituality in this world, we do have this idea that there is a right way. And we do, we have teachers out there teaching a certain way of doing things, right? But it is in the end about taking different tools and understanding things differently. And what I do now is not anything that anyone has ever taught me, even though I thought when I first went to a teacher, like, oh, I'm going to be able to do it this way, this way, this way. Like it is really, really different for everyone. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about that we're here having a human experience. And that's like the little flavor that we get in this human experience. Even when we're touching on all these spiritual things, we still get this very distinct experience amongst this collective experience. So I think that's cool.
I was blessed with a really nice relationship. I've known this girl for 20 years, and she's deep SRF devotee, Yogananda, and very bhakti, whereas I'm very Ghani. And but yet our relationship we were bonded on a level that's beyond what the form of our particular spiritual practice took, because like we were super deep. And we used to get into these nice, they weren't debates, but whatever, call it what you want. And I would want to, it was fun because it was safe and we were emotionally mature enough not to we weren't going to worry, oh, I might trigger her. And so it was really fun. And I got into where I would not make fun of her devotion, but I would challenge it. I'd be look, all you got to do though, what if you see it like this? Then you don't have to why waste, a year of praying and praying? Like you just realize that, and so we would have fun like that. And so, yeah, it's great when people can meet on the level of heart, and it doesn't really matter what your spiritual practice is.
Yeah,
But
that
there's
does
one
sound
thing,
like fun.
I think that there's one thing, right? That for everyone, whether they are spiritual or not, there's one thing for sure, and I think that everyone can settle their heart on that or being peaceful about it, is that, of course, most of the people, especially people that are busy working, and raise a family, this and that, right? But actually, from my observation, really is that because the last 14 years, because of Eastover, I have met lots of different teachers and students too. What I have noticed really is that whether actually the person is aware or not, their daily life, whether it's challenges from the work, challenges of the family or relationship or the kids. But actually that itself is already actually is a path for them. It's shaping them
The challenges
toward a spiritual, I believe that is the case for everyone.
they can transform faster than somebody in an ashram that's doing their little meditation schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been me, like that, of course. So I can relate to that. Yeah. I made a video about like awakenings, like for the special forces or something like that. Yeah. Some people have some super heavy karmic just challenges. It's like, oh my God, you can't even get a breather. Like you just okay. Then the next thing hits and there's nothing
Yes.
you can do about it. You know, it's
Yes.
just like bringing it like that. And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
And yeah, and I see some, they become awakened, and it's just so amazing because actually, you don't even need to ask them their story. You just look at their body and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know that how much they were hit, like it's like as if, just like you are saying, they are one by one, it's like as if they cannot even breathe, like their back is hunched, they're thin, and oh my goodness, like I remember, one time I first time, we've been knowing each other for a long time, through online. But then when I saw the person, oh my God, I was crying because when I saw her body, I just knew how much that she have gone through. But by the time that I met her, she's already half awakened. So from the voice, and you cannot really imagining of their actual body shape. But once when I saw the person, I was in tears. I just knew how much the person went through, Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a movie, Danny DeVito was explaining about character. And he said, sometimes you get an experience in life that's so deep that you like take that experience, it becomes a line in your face,
Oh,
And,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because typically it's people's challenges in life that bring them, let's say, to a spiritual path. But at the same time, it's the challenges that are actually taking you down this spiritual path, right? So it's so funny because sometimes people come into the spiritual path and they think, oh, I could live a great life. Let me just join an ashram. Let me go and live on a commune, right? But at the same time, it's like, but this is your path. Like it's okay to, like you shouldn't separate yourself entirely from, let's say, this thought of suffering that you're having through everything, and rather actually face it and deal with it.
well, life will make you. I tried
Yeah.
that too. I joined the SRF ashram when I was 25 or something. I was like, because I was living in Hollywood, downtown Hollywood, California, and I'm just gonna go be a monk. Like I'm done. Like, why be out here with all this crazy? I'm just gonna go and we meditate every day and good food and that was my idea. But then after 3 months, life my health situation was acting up in my neck and I couldn't do the regular work and chores anymore. So that's part of the deal to stay there. And also I was just getting restless, I couldn't, like, that wasn't my destiny. I couldn't just find a loophole, I needed to go through the grind. And so, yeah, we can try to escape our destiny, but yeah, we won't.
Yeah. And I think that's a good reminder for people. It's like, why do you come to spirituality to cope with things or, think about things differently? It's not to go and attain enlightenment. Like it's not to, be awakened. It's not to do any of that. It's actually to live a better life. It's actually to have a better human experience, be able to cope with the human experience better. And I think a lot of people can forget that because it's
Yeah.
easy to want to just escape all of it.
Well, know yourself better. Mainly is know yourself better. Yeah.
Like this human character so much and pretend like this is the balance I feel that needs to be addressed in a wide way in the spiritual realm, because it's like they just want to deny that in one form or another. And so I'm the opposite. Because I just, that's how the word, like something wants to like give some reverence to this human character that everybody wants to keep pretending like don't exist or is the problem. It's like, no, we couldn't talk to each other right now if it wasn't for the human character. So yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's I think it's really easy marketing to say that, you know, you go down a spiritual path and you're not gonna have problems anymore, right? Like it's, yeah, unfortunately how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the real problems, if somebody's really sincere in their aspiration to wake up to their true nature, it's just common sense. You're going to crash hard, man. All these things that have been hiding are going to be uprooted, and that's going to look messy as hell, especially if Grace turned up the throttle and it just all keeps coming. So, yeah, get ready to suffer.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And that can be an extremely disorienting experience because there's a lot of that our brains cannot comprehend. Like it takes a much longer time for our brains to sort of come back to that and even have any idea of what happened when that stuff gets turned up. So that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that how to say is that definitely in the Western world, spirituality has been very much commercialized. That's the problem. So when these kind of a commercialization of spirituality going on, I mean, of course, you know, historically, spirituality in many ways were always kind of like, you know, commercialized, you know, like church, you know, this and that. That's a commercialization, right? And but the problem is that people are hearing these messages, you know, that coming from the head, you know, and sometimes it's even spiritual ego. And then what happened is that, you know, there's a separation. There's a separation of actually is that, you know, of how our body really, how our body feel. The body is not in touch with, you know, of the brain, you know, so there's a separation over there. And I think that's the problem is. And especially when it's being commercialized, you know, the ones that very often very intellectual and things like that, you know, they are being promoted by the big machine, you know. So then, you know, you have these things just beaming onto people, you know. This is why, you know, I like to talk to, you know, like Yash, you know, because how to say is that this is real, actually, spirituality. You know, it's your feet is on the ground, you are in the grove, you know, you are really in touch with your feelings and your body, you know. And I think that this is partially of, you know, that I want to, you know, explore with the people that who are actually, they are the real practitioners, you know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they understand, you know, how are you gonna, if you've never been through anything, or you pretend like you haven't, you know, you're above it, how are you gonna relate and actually help somebody who's in the midst of, you know, the stuff? It's like my other channel, when the guys, you know, they're in their 20s and they're asking like, how do I like stop wanting this female attraction and tension? Like it's making my mind crazy. Like I'm sick of thinking about it all the time. How do I just stop it? And I'm like, you can't, man. What do you mean? How are you going to stop it? You're in your 20s. You got to play that a little bit and we taste how it feels. And you know, is it all cooked up? What your mind's telling you? Like, oh, she gave me attention. Okay, how long does that feel good? Few seconds, then you need to do it again. You know, you just be more aware and conscious of how life is playing out. And then in that consciousness, you transcend it, you know. But yeah, that's a fun channel. They're funny over there.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I feel like the best way to like get past all that stuff is to go and like have the shittiest experiences, you know?
Totally. Me and my Indian friend, we call that paradoxical sodna. That's when you go into the dirt and you drink the poison and you taste it. You know, like it's stupid, but yet, what are you gonna do? You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more like that's the left-handed path, tantra. You know, it says go do it, but do it consciously. I remember there was a story, I liked Osho, and the guy couldn't stop murdering people. And he's like, I really want to stop murdering people. He says, no, listen, don't worry about it. Keep murdering people. But next time you murder, that's why I like Osho. Like I feel we're made out of the same fabric. He says, next time you murder somebody, pay attention when you're murdering him. Look into his eyes, how does this feel? How do you feel when you're doing it? Like, and yeah, and then the murderer came back and said, you're right, man, I feel bad now. I can't murder anymore. So I've always been that way, as opposed to the aesthetic type, like look at the ground, if you're trying to avoid lust or something, look at the ground, don't look at any girl, don't touch her, don't even have a Zoom call with her. Maybe you'll get drugged, that's more the aesthetic way of doing things. I couldn't, it's just not my path.
Yeah, I think that's the harder way. Okay, so let's talk about, as we wrap up here, I want to hear a little bit about how you talked about intuition being very energetic for you, like you were able to sort of tell and maybe notice more so what's intuition versus what's brain work because of the energy. So like if you were just talking to like, somebody who's very not energy conscious, let's say, how would you explain like what's the difference between intuition and brain?
Yeah, it depends who I'm working with. If I was talking to one of these geniuses I was alluding to earlier, I just wouldn't, I don't know. Yeah. Well, first thing, it has to be in the moment. It's hard to give a hypothetical situation, because when you're in the moment, you're seeing everything. You're seeing maybe, oh, there's an opening there. You notice something, there's a certain word or something that you notice somehow that's one of the numbers to the combination to get inside because of some energetic reason. You can tell, okay, let's talk in that way then, because I noticed they opened a little bit unconsciously when we talk in that way. So it's so individual and in the moment about that. But okay, but let's try to answer it anyway. Intuition versus intellect. Yeah, you see, it's just going to be words for somebody who really doesn't. You have to taste, like you have to know what it is. Like it's an inner feeling. I like Yogananda's definition of intuition. It's the perfect balance between reasoning and feeling. It's not too much reason, nor is it too excessive emotional. Like, oh no, no, it's a balance, you can say, between the masculine and feminine energy. And it manifests as there's just some inner feeling, like something like, okay, we're having this discussion today, the three of us. Intuitively, it just feels good. It feels holistic. It feels nice. It feels like it's synchronized. So now I used words, but really I'm describing what the inner feeling is. It's not the mind's, the mind doesn't know anything about this. Like, but I'm using the mind to articulate this inner feeling. So I would try to bring them to something like that, like something that we would try to make some kind of example in real time or something to try to point to say, okay, you aware this is inner feeling. This isn't your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, I like how you addressed Yogananda's definition about it, because I feel like that is actually good parameters in terms of like when something veers really far off into feelings, and then when something veers really far off into I'm trying to overthink something and figure something out. But like right in the middle, it's like there's like a sweet spot.
Right.
So yeah.
Like Trump, he's a genius with business, but intellectually is a little bit dangerous. He's too calculative. Whereas like, Marianne Williamson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked her in my 20s, and she speaks on Course in Miracles and stuff, but she's running for president. Like I was amazed.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we had like a mind of Trump coupled with Marianne's realization, then you could weigh things out and see like, okay, just as another country called me stupid doesn't mean I need to like try to kill them. Like there's some balance.
But I like, yeah. But I like how
oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, so for me is that, when somebody speaks with the head, right, with the intellectual, my left side of the head will hurt. So yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, because we were saying, our body actually is much, much smarter than our mind. It's really true because when somebody speaks too much, from the head, right? My left side of the head will hurt like right away. So then I know something is off.
Good. Oh, that's good. I understand. Good.
No, but I like the way that Yash addresses the intuition because he's not discounting the intellectual.
Uh-huh.
Like he's like, I don't know. I'm just currently a big proponent of like, not completely destroying the ego and thinking that we're all just these spiritual beings floating around.
Yeah.
So I like that you're there saying, it is a balance, right? Like because in the end, with the brain being a part of our body, we do need to understand this connection more so. And, I think right now I'm interested in playing with that. So that speaks to me a lot.
I made a video just uploaded a couple hours ago. The ego is nitrous fuel for your awakening. And yeah, like there would be no awakening without the ego or the mind, nor any experience. So yeah, totally. Now the intellect just needs to be grounded. It just needs to be.
Yeah,
This is why
grounded. Yeah.
this is why you hear some sayings like the greatest leaders or man always has a woman or something. I mean, it's not 100% true, but what they're saying is it ground like the female energy, like it grounds the guy. Otherwise, he could maybe do some things that it just are too literal. Maybe he'd take out people he don't need to take out. Whereas the woman, she brings some feeling into that and gives some balance. And the same with the woman. If a man helps ground her, otherwise sometimes they can just spin out. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
female, like
Yeah.
it's nice union.
But Yash, did you notice like even thoughts, okay? A lot of the thoughts, like most of us, we think that, thoughts or things come to our consciousness, is like coming from ourselves. But I just encounter of so many occasions or so much of the time, even our thoughts, it's not our own thoughts.
Oh, I know. It could be collective thoughts. It could be, yeah, where do we get the thought to have you ask me to do this? And where did I get the where did I get the thought to agree? Like, yeah, the show's running itself,
Uh-huh.
on that level, that's cosmic level. But if you're talking sometimes personal thoughts, yeah, like sometimes I'll be if I'm in a situation, I'm not in this much, but if I'm somewhere on the beach and it's Friday night and it's in a populated place and you got the girls with the bikinis and everybody's trying to like get a dopamine hit from looks. And if I get a thought that's like all of a sudden, like, check her out, check her, that could be, it's just an example of collective, I'm in the collective mainstream soup. And so like these thoughts are coming, normally they wouldn't come, but they're looking, is there some respondent vibration in you? Are you going to go with this thought? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I felt like, sometimes we are kind of like, each one of us is like, like a boat on the ocean. And then this ocean just has these waves, like moving around, and then you are kind of like the boat just goes with this wave, and you really so strongly feel that, kind of like being carried on.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot more trouble feeling that. Like, let's say I'm just like lying on my couch for hours and not doing anything, right? And then I'm like, God, this is never gonna end. Like, I'm just gonna be here forever. Like I'm like totally convinced, okay, the universe is not gonna give me shit because I'm not out experiencing anything, right? So I get really antsy or like impatient. So ex explain to me there when, stuff is
But
gonna happen.
When you say though, you're going to be here forever, what do you mean? Be where forever? Like you're
If
laying on the
if I'm not the person to get myself off of the couch, right?
right. Then you'll just be there forever. Right. But I made a video saying like if there's no free will, then do we just lie in bed all day? And
Right.
then I talked and said, try it. Yeah, that's what I said. I said, just try it. Try to stay in bed. I said the life force is going to move you out of bed. You can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible. I always get up and do so much stuff. It's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you know that one of the qigong called intelligence qigong, Chinese called 智能 qigong. So in that qigong, actually the master, he is still alive. So he is soon to be 94 years old now. And he used to have a qigong hospital with like 3,000 beds. But then, the government shut it down, because there were too many things going on in the Qigong, community. Not him, but the other community, yeah. But anyhow, okay, so he actually used to have a practice for people and just tell people to just lying there and do nothing, just watch the cloud and watch this blue sky. And actually, is that there's lots of people came to realization of a lot of things by doing that.
Yeah, and this is what I try and do because whenever I feel sad or anything, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna lie in bed or lie on the couch until this stuff works itself out. And then whatever happens, happens. But it's
Right.
so hard. Okay. As a human being, right? We have our brains, we have life force coming in to be like, oh, let me go paint my feelings out. Like there's so much stuff that pushes you to like, I don't need to feel this, right? So there is a practice in that.
Oh, I know. Yeah, to stop running from, I made some video, I think stop running from your karma or stop. Sometimes, oh, I like that one. Sometimes you have to just feel bad till you feel good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, get to catch this tendency to keep trying to escape, especially when we use the cloak of spirituality to do so. What's the technique? What's the practice now to escape this? I'm in some identity or I'm in some heavy feeling. Oh, that's not spiritual. Okay, what's the technique? Okay, self-inquiry. I'll do, no, that's not working. No, man, like who cares? Like, yeah,
Right.
you just let it go through its alchemy, and
Right, yeah. Because
no,
it is tempting, like you're saying, when you have all the tools, when you know what can escape it, you're really tempted to just go right over it. But in the end, that thing, I feel like this is like shadow talk. It's like that shadow will just keep coming up over and over again until you address it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good that you sharing that. That's true. Yeah, this is one of the biggest things when I'm doing my groups or individuals that I constantly keep telling them, like, you just got to be okay with yourself and don't judge yourself and let this transform. God's transforming this, and you don't have to do it. Just relax. Forget about spirituality for a little bit. Go for a walk or go like whatever. Stop obsessing.
Yeah.
The paintings on the wall, you painted them?
Somebody else did. They're around the house, and then I take them and put them here. So then when
okay. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice background. Okay, well, I think that concludes our episode today, right?
Yes.
And
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah, Yash, it was really great to talk to you.
Yeah, I really seen a lot of insight from you, and that's why I so appreciate of your talk on YouTube. I think YouTube is really a good media because it's kind of like just let each individual who is running through it and just they can take it something, they take something with you. There's nothing, kind of like it's like a preaching. There's no preaching, there's no teaching. It's totally just that, you resonate with it, you take something with you.
Hannah, do you speak Chinese also? Or
I used to speak fluently when I was a really young kid, and then I lost a lot of it.
yeah. Yeah, that's a
Do
hard
you
You were
one.
speak
in China
Chinese?
for a year, right? You were in Beijing for a year. So
No,
you
but I mean,
speak a little Chinese?
just ni hao and CC. Yeah, I've been in South America for 10 years and I can barely get by. So yeah, I'm not really good with languages. Those channels are, yeah,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
we all got our thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
see
you.
Thank
you.
you.